Welcome to Beyond Words Presents. I'm your host, Whitney Diffenderfer, and this week we are here with Lux Alani. She's the author of our newest title, The Little Vanilla Book, S&N Wisdom to Improve Your Everyday Life. And I have they're just so cute, and I have a copy right here, so I just want to show you right now. And the amazing thing is with Lux, and this is, Lux, welcome to the show. Say hi first.
Thank you. Hi, Whitney. Hi, everyone.
I'm so excited to have you on the show because your backstory is one of the most fascinating ones that we've ever had. Essentially, and Lux, please feel free to jump in and elaborate, but you lived a vanilla life and then you became a dominatrix. Yes, dominatrix. And then you kind of went back to that vanilla life, but it was more like vanilla plus is kind of how I like to think about it. And that plus is what we're going to be talking about today because you're going to teach all of us how to be sacred feminine badasses.
Nice.
Well, and everybody out there watching, if you have a question or a comment or just want to share something with us, please use the Google Hangouts app and be sure to follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and also subscribe to our YouTube page. So, Lux, of course, the first question that pops to anyone's mind when they hear your backstory is, why did you become a dominatrix? And then also, on the other end of that, why did you stop being one?
Thank you. Good questions. First, I have to say I practice what I like to call radical openness to empowerment. And I've kind of made a life study of power from being disempowered when I grew up. So becoming a dominatrix for me was sort of an easy decision because it was the most blatant, undisguised look at how power works. So, the image of dominatrix, the all-powerful ruling the dungeon and all of that. I was drawn to that in a way that led me to really explore that world. And I am vanilla, but I found it fascinating that I started interviewing dominatrixes. And what they had to say was really interesting to me because I thought, well, that's enlightening and that's interesting. And they talked about having your boundaries honored, and there's limits and all the cliche safe word information that most of us have. And I just thought, I don't experience that in my vanilla life. I'm going to explore further. So I started going to BDSM workshops and learning about power and going to dungeon parties. And I just kept exploring until the time that I thought, this is really actually a good fit for me. And I needed to explore power, and I needed to find a way to rebalance my power because my concept was kind of, power is like being in charge and being a badass and not showing weakness. And I had grown up with the message that power was either something you were at the mercy of or something you wielded to, damage other people. So it was a really kind of mind-blowing experience for me to go, this is actually an arena that I can experience power as a means to enable myself and enable others.
And it's sorry to interrupt.
No, it was mind-blowing.
Yeah, well, it's just so interesting because I think that, and there's all sorts of news that always comes out about it, but it's just like women in general, we will not take that position of power because we don't want to be seen as bitchy or as, I don't know, there's all sorts of interviews about how like when men take that power and take charge, they're seen as assertive and ambitious and all like ambitious in a good way. And if women do, then it's something entirely different. And so I love the fact that you're taking something that, let's be honest, is kind of illicit, and you're using it to show women how we just inherently, we have power and we can use it.
Yeah, and I agree. Our societal messages are around, men being, the more power they have, the stronger and more respectful they are. And women, they're just bitches. Don't be so cold. Don't be so bitchy. Don't be so bossy. It's interesting because in that arena, it's kind of a matriarchal society. And I say that in the Little Vanilla book. And I was surprised about that as well, not having experienced it. But a dominatrix in that arena is literally worshipped and revered. And she's the one that really sets the tone. And while it's a mutual decision-making process between her and her submissive as far as how they're going to play and the dynamics of that play, she is still the one who basically rules and is admired for that. And that was really liberating for me because I have always had this part of me that is just naturally alpha, if you will. And it was okay. It was okay to go in fact, not only was it okay, and not only was it respected, but it was necessary. Because in that sort of environment, and it's the same in a work environment or anyone who's in a leadership position, everybody's counting on them to be in the leadership position. So if you're not sure about it and you're going, well, I don't want to seem, too direct, well, then the submissive can't trust you, can't give themselves to the process because they're like, it doesn't instill confidence in someone else. Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure that there are people out there that are just listening to the two terms dominatrix and submissive and just thinking about the fact that, and this is where my head goes, is that dominatrix is the good one and submissive is the weak one. But I know you talk about it specifically in your book. You talk about the fact that both roles are necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Can you for someone who is completely unfamiliar with this world, can you just talk a little bit about like what is that empowering position? What is that is for a submissive?
I'm not clear on your question. What is the empowering?
So most people would assume that submissive means weak, and that people who just don't have that alpha tendency like you were talking about, that they're just put into this weaker position, and potentially, from there you go to that idea of power that you were talking about, something to wield and like that. So it's like, what is the empowering position of the submissive?
Thank you for clarifying that, because that's really important to me. And that was one of the things that really helped me redefine how I saw power as well. Because I thought of that as well. I had no reference point to BDSM any more than anybody else on the planet. I didn't know if it was just people getting their freak on and it was some deviant, and what I learned and what I was so sort of in awe of is how much power a submissive actually has. The premise of power exchange is exchange. It's a fair exchange. And let me just take a quick detour to say fair power exchange, to make this a vanilla concept, is in any walk of life, no matter who you are or what you do, all that means is that you value yourself, you value your contributions and your belief system, and you do the same for others. S&M just dresses it in fetish wear. So what I realized with submissives is that it was an exchange, and I wasn't. They were granting me power. They were granting me trust. They were granting me power. They were granting me control over that scene. And it wasn't me, I wasn't taking that or putting myself in a position that made them weak or inept in any way. And they have an innate need to serve and to be in that position. So that's how it becomes an exchange. And whereas I always would have thought previously, and still the natural fit for me was definitely as a dominatrix. It wouldn't have been a submissive. But at the same time, it was really great to see that, in fact, they ultimately have the power. They're the ones that have the safe word, that draw the limits, that say, I will go to this limit, not beyond, that are allowed to stop the scene if they feel uncomfortable emotionally or physically. So, ultimately, you're not even in the final position of saying.
That's fascinating, because I think a lot of us take for granted the fact that when people follow us, the only reason they're following us is because they're granting us the ability to lead. Like, that's actually where it comes from.
Absolutely. I love that concept, and I knew it, but I had forgotten it because I had, when I was a teenager, I competed as an equestrian, and raised horses, love horses. And I always knew that with my horses. You know, here's a 1,200-pound animal that has the fight or flight instinct, right? And that could, you know, that you're really not the boss of, come on. But I knew that it was a privilege that they trusted me and that they allowed me to train them and that we worked cohesively so well. And it was just something I kind of relearned in the dungeon. Oh, this is really a very similar situation.
That's fantastic. Because as I was saying before, it's like women. I, I say women because we're just societally cast in a submissive position, and for many of us that has us question our self-worth. And I know that's something that you very much address in your book, in the Little Vanilla book, and you talk specifically about like 5 different tenets that you really want to make sure that women look at. What are those 5?
I think the key aspects that shape a woman's experience is her authenticity, her confidence, her body image, her resilience, and her courage. You know, I think there's not many things that you can think of as far as your life experience that don't include those and that don't shape your life and that don't affect how you either really bring it or you struggle.
Mm. Would you say that there's any one of those that you've found with women is kind of like the key one, like one that comes up a lot for them?
I think the foundation for all of those is self-worth.
Mm.
So of the 5, though, they're so intrinsically tied.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they're all so important. And I feel like authenticity is just so important because you have to live your truth. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what else happens, if you're living your truth, then that's an empowered life. But
Mm.
at the same time, if you don't if you don't have resilience, you're not going to be able to do that because there's so many obstacles to doing that, especially with all the societal messages of
Yeah.
play small, dim your light, don't be big, don't claim your power, you know. So that's why I feel
Yeah.
like they're so tied. Um,
Yeah.
body.
I yeah, you just said the key one that I really wanted to talk about because, and as people who watch the show regularly know, I do have body image issues. I went through a really big weight loss journey, and then I gained a lot of the weight back. And I don't think I ever got to a healthy body image. And the thing that I realized the more that I talk with my friends and the more, just women in general, it's like we really do have a very unhealthy relationship with our bodies. And I would love any guidance you could possibly offer. Like, I know you have Spanx in your book, which I love. Is there something that you could offer women who, like me, are not really seeing any way to be comfortable with their own body?
I would love. I would love to read one of the Spanx if that
Please.
works.
Mm-hmm.
But before I do that, I will say that you're not alone. As I sat there and wrote the body image section of this book, I just thought, I don't know how to stop. I could write 3 books about this alone. I truly could. And I feel like my struggle was so extreme. I mean, you don't meet a lot of people who had an eating disorder for nearly half their life and survived it, and who had a career which was modeling for me that exacerbated that eating disorder so badly, and who, because of lack of self-worth, was just willing to do anything, just, you know, anything, the eating disorder, drugs, endless cardio, anything I could do to control my body and manage my body and be the right body, especially in the modeling industry. For me, I feel like it was such an extreme that I can speak to this, and getting on the other side of it has been such a big deal. I mean, especially for me, it literally was life or death.
Mm.
So So the body image is section is very close to my heart, and what I know about it, I could talk. Oh, I could spend the rest of the hour talking about this, but I won't. But what I know about it is that um, it's definitely a lot of what we experience around body image is definitely a symptom of something deeper. And I know for sure that was my issue. And I know that for me, that all of my struggles around that shifted just a little bit the day that I decided to commit to self-care. I didn't know what self-care was. I didn't know what it would look like. It seemed ridiculous. I was a very, well, completely the opposite of that. And I was extremely self-critical. And everything I had learned in the modeling industry just reinforced how critical I was of myself. So I thought, okay, I'm going to practice self-care. And one of the things that came with that was, okay, I don't get to beat myself up and, criticize my body all the time. I don't get to do that. And if I started to do that, I would check myself and go, okay, am I really huge and horrifying? And that check-in, logically, I couldn't say yes. I would have to say, well, no, I'm really not. Um, I took away some of the ways that I had to judge my body, and that was a big deal for me. And one of those ways for me was the scale. And what I found was, and to me, it's about giving anything too much power. So what I found was, when I got on the scale, my whole day would be changed by the numbers, whatever those numbers were. If the numbers seemed better than I expected, I would have a kick-ass day and I would just be like, yeah, I rule. If the numbers were not right, it would just cause me to have a terrible day and feel bad about myself. And I just thought, how am I giving this ridiculous little thing so much power? So that was one. So to me, it was stripping away the ways that I had to judge myself. Mm-hmm. And an even bigger thing, I feel like, if I just want to give a couple takeaways, was feeling capable with my body. That was a hugely transformative thing. And for me, I hadn't ever done a sport. I mean, I'd been an equestrian, but hadn't done a sport. So when I took up roller derby, which I had been obsessed with for like nearly a decade, obsessed. And it was like the dominatrix thing. When one day I was like, wait a minute, why don't I do that? And finally, for the first time, feeling really capable with my body, whatever it was capable of doing, also shifted my focus away from being critical of it, its size and shape, to being proud of the fact that it actually could do these athletic, physical things. So those are a couple things. I mean, do those resonate with you?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I realize is that I am hypercritical of my body. I think all women are. I mean, it's like as soon as you look at yourself in the mirror, all of a sudden there's this litany of oh that, it just comes. And just to be able to stop that, I don't even notice it anymore because it just happens. And similarly, like for a long time, I refused to look at the scale because I didn't want to know what I weighed, because I didn't want to give power to the scale. And I'm realizing as you're talking, by refusing to look at it, I was still giving power to it, because there was still a number there that I knew that if I saw, it would either make my day awesome or it would destroy my day. And so just getting rid of it and not even having that association, just being like, I weigh what I weigh. Mm-hmm. Why does it matter what number's on that? Mm-hmm. Is really liberating.
Yeah, it really is. And yeah, I literally just got rid of mine. I took it out of my home. Mm-hmm. And actually, at one point, I thought, I should do a funny, the joke with taking a gnome around the world and taking pictures of it in different places. I thought, how funny would it be if I took my scale and just took these interesting places and photographed it to repurpose the scale, because the purpose it has is pretty damaging to most women, especially ones who do give it that much power. And I think, because don't you find that you kind of know anyway? You get on the scale, you already have a pretty solid idea in your head of where you think you're at. Mm-hmm.
Well, and for me, that ties in with what you said about being capable, because one of the things that one of the reasons I want to be strong, I mean, that's the thing that is totally there for me, is I just want to be strong because I want to be able to go hiking. I mean, I live in the Pacific Northwest. There's gorgeous hiking trails all over the place. I want to be able to do anything I want, like roller derby, like you said. It's like I want to be able to just throw on a pair of skates and go and throw my body around.
Yeah.
And I know that we all know our own bodies in order to be able to say, yes, I feel comfortable with doing that. No, I don't quite feel comfortable because I think if I did that, I would injure myself rather severely. Yeah, so just those two things kind of tie in together for me.
Sure. The strength aspect spoke to me because I'm all about that. I'm just like, I have to go rock climb. I have to drive rally cars. I'm a markswoman. I have to go. Like, these things are necessary for me, and I go competitive shooting and the roller derby. And when I'm at the gym, I want to be able to leg press 400 pounds. I want to be able to lift a lot of weight. I want to feel that.
Yeah.
And
not for any other reason other than you just want to be strong.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It shapes, because you feel strong when you feel fit and strong. It just affects so many other things. It has this wonderful effect.
That's why I asked the question about which one of these is kind of a key one, because, and maybe it's different for every single woman, because it's like I look at the body image one and I automatically just like, oh, if I had the body image one figured out, then my resilience, my courage, my authenticity, my confidence, all of those things would automatically be bolstered. And I'm sure that there are some women out there who like confidence is a challenge or authenticity is a challenge. And so it's kind of, choose whichever key fits and then use that to help open up all the others.
It's true, but what you're saying is really vital, because if you are stuck in a bad place with bad self-image because you're uncomfortable in your own skin, if every day you can't rise above that because it's just so, no pun, heavy for you, which was my experience, so much of my energy in life, so much of my focus went to my body. It was crazy. There just wasn't much left over for anything else. There wasn't energy left over for me to say, oh, I'm going to become mindful and aware and, spiritually enlightened. It was like every day was about how much can I load my body today.
Yeah. Well, and that's, to me, that brings up something else. And hopefully we won't talk about this for the whole hour. We'll talk about many other things that are awesome about this book. But I'm just thinking about the fact that I try to go to those places. I'm sure many other women are like this. Like, you try to go to that next step while not really being authentic with yourself and telling yourself, no, there's this other thing that you have to really deal with first before you can actually, rise to that next thing. And I find myself frequently, I'm definitely not truthful with myself, and I'll just be kind of like, oh yeah, no, that doesn't matter, and try to move on to the next thing. So yeah, I'm just seeing how they're all just very, very intertwined, and that one will lead to the other and lend to the other.
They really are, and you're right that women are going to have areas that they are stronger in, and areas that they need more work in. But if you have anything that's just consuming a lot of your attention and that's really pulling you down, then yeah, that's a big thing too. It's not a superficial, oh, you want to have a better body, right? It's a really, really big deal, and it defines so much of our worth, and that's the female experience.
Well, and I love that you have these 5 things. I'm so excited. I don't know if you can tell. But these 5 things, because I feel that the female experience, like you just talked about, we're like, oh my goodness, there's this going on, and then this going on, and then all this, blah, blah, blah. And our brains, we don't have time to settle. We don't have time to figure out really what is actually going on with us. What is it that's making me feel off? And when you have these 5 things, you can almost treat them like check-ins, almost, where you can be kind of like, okay, which of these needs a spank?
I love it. That's a good way to put it, and that's actually a good lead-in, because with the body image issue, so much of For example, even the scale, giving your power and your attention to a scale going, oh, it says that number, that defines me as this, that means this, is all counterintuitive to being in touch with your instincts and being centered. And that's one of the big things that I found, that when I removed so much, and look, I'm still in work in progress, everybody, I mean, but when you remove the bulk of those issues, you're finally able to really do that. And I'm going to read the spank for the people that don't know. I should say what live spanks are, right? So in my book, I wanted takeaways for people to really be able to embrace their worth and have strong action items so that they could be more true to themselves and more confident and have a better body image and more resilient and have more courage to go the distance. And because these are life practices based on BDSM themes, I call them life spanks. And they're in every chapter's Spank This section. And this is one that is in the body image section. I really love, and it really kind of speaks to what we're talking about right now. And it's called Fine Tuning. The natural sensitivity and wisdom of our bodies gets buried under accumulated conditioning, disconnection, and even trauma. That's how we lose our mojo. We live in our heads more than we more than we sense our bodies. But we can reconnect to our inner wisdom. In BDSM power play, the stakes are raised for your sensitivity to pain and pleasure. Intuition is paramount. You have to trust your instincts about who is safe to play with and to entrust with your psyche and body. Attuning to your body's wisdom takes patience, willingness, and letting your heart lead. Start by engaging your senses. Take a moment to really notice your surroundings, savor food, hear music, and feel your breath. Notice how your body feels in this moment without thinking about it. Just get still and aim for 1 second of becoming pure sensation. This practice of mindfulness, which is a state of openness, awareness, and focus, will deepen over time and enable you to discover your deeper truths. You'll get better at listening to your inner instincts and letting your inner compass guide you. Mindfulness can bring us some tough emotions, but allows us to wake up to our authentic experiences. And that for me was stripping away some of those things that I used to judge myself from an outside perspective, whether it was not modeling bathing suits, not weighing myself, all of those things, and having a sport that made me feel really capable allowed me to sort of go inside and start feeling my experience from the inside out, which is hugely healing. I'm living proof.
Yeah, we're so used to, especially with the body image side of things, working from the outside in so much. Well, I have to tell everybody, because we just keep talking about this, and I love that section that you just read, but for as a celebration of our show today, you can actually get Lex's book, the Little Vanilla Book, for $9.99. It's usually $15.99. Just go to our website, beyondword.com/Lux, Lux, and you can get it for $9.99. It's a great book. It's just the most adorable little packaging, perfect for a gift. And on the back it says, "However you rock it, you are a sacred feminine badass."
Boom.
Exactly.
That's my mission in life, and it's such a beautiful book. It's linen and lovely, and just it's so pretty. It's a little collectible, giftable book. I'm so proud of it.
And we are as well. And so the question that I have, it's probably the one that a lot of people have asked you, besides the dominatrix question, of course, but because of the incredible popularity of 50 Shades of Grey, a lot of people are intrigued by this book. And I know that this book, I mean, whatever they put in 50 Shades of Grey, I have not actually read them, is its own version of BDSM, and then you have your, like, possibly more authentic version of BDSM. And so what are you hoping that people who are intrigued by it because of that will get out of this book?
That if people are intrigued by it because of 50 Shades of Grey, what they'll
Exactly.
get. I think there's a greater sense of reverence for humanity and for BDSM itself in my book. I use it as a tool to empower women. I'm not going to speak to 50 Shades of Grey, but I will say I use it as a tool to empower women. In fact, no one has looked at personal growth through the lens of BDSM. I mean, which, as you know, is why I got a book deal. It's exciting. I love that I'm the OG. And I take great care to say, listen, there's this entirely different way of looking at empowerment. And it requires a little bit of open-mindedness. But it's the group of women who are maybe not, who don't resonate with your heart is a butterfly and, think of a pink cloud. I think there's a huge need for something that brings together spirituality and swagger, and spirituality and badassery, and for me, the pathway to that really was through BDSM. And if I could say one thing about what I do with that topic that is quite different maybe than 50 Shades of Grey, is that I show that ultimately when you get down to the core of it, it's about honoring power exchange. In some of the ways that I've said before, it's about honoring power exchange. And there's empowering aspects of it that I speak to in the Little Vanilla book from a vanilla perspective. And those aspects are the fact that it is consensual, it is respectful of boundaries, there's a very deep communication process that happens that includes negotiation, and that includes everyone honoring everyone else's limits. It's an arena for huge amounts of self-expression, and all of these things are empowering, and I show different ways to sort of own your strength through them. So
the thing that popped out to me in what you just said is that spirituality and badassery come together.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one or the other, and we're so habituated to thinking of them as or like opposites.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what have you discovered in integrating them? What have you discovered you could more of because they're together?
What have I discovered that what? I didn't hear that one part.
There's a little bit of an echo. That's okay. Because you see the two of them as joined, and they're definitely more powerful because of that.
Mm-hmm.
What have you seen you could do with that?
Oh.
Or we could do with that in our lives, in our vanilla lives.
Mm-hmm. I think that you just show up in the world in such a different way when you feel like you have permission to show up as beautiful and powerful and truthful to yourself, and that it's okay. I think life is just such a different experience, and like a lot of people, I grew up in a formal religion that made me feel like you didn't do that, right? You kept your head down and you tried to be good, or you could be punished, and so I feel like to be able to shift your perspective and accept the universe is loving and kind and has your back, which took me years. Because that's not what I was taught at all. There was a huge disconnect for me. But the more you can believe that, the more it sinks in, and it's your experience becomes not, oh, I shouldn't take up too much space, I should play small, I'm not worth, my voice is not worth being heard. If the universe is kind and has your back, then clearly it's okay to do that. Mm-hmm. So that to me is sort of where that intersection between spirituality and badassery comes into play. If you live in a world where you're connected to people and there's this flow, and things in nature don't shirk and hide themselves and feel bad about themselves, then the same is true for humanity. It starts sort of giving you permission to shine. And that's really one of the main things I try to do also in the Little Vanilla book, because it was so hard for me to just claim my worth, to feel like I was even worth being here, that I wanted to, throughout every page, not only champion women, not only be an advocate for feminine strength and power, but to just say it's okay. Like, it's okay to show up and to shine and to love yourself. And it's a big deal.
It's a really big deal.
Yeah.
Well, and you've spoken about it a little bit, but your history, what you've done throughout your life, is really quite remarkable. Like, you've been, obviously, you've been a dominatrix, you've done equestrian, you've been in roller derby, you've also been a crisis counselor. And because of that amazing resume, I would love to hear what about each of those aspects brought you to write this book and helped you really develop a message that's going to make a difference for women.
Well, I would say the thing that formed the book the most was how much I had to go through just to feel like I deserved to be here and I deserved to have a voice. And all of those things, though, also really informed that. And I find that I am service oriented, for lack of a better word. My mother said one time, you are absolutely at your best when you are needed. And what I have found is that every year I do volunteering and I serve the homeless, and I wanted something more. I wanted to be at that point in someone's life where it was a crisis and I was, what came between them and something potentially devastating. And that's why I became a crisis counselor. And it was hugely gratifying for me, just like volunteering is. So I started feeling less like I was on my own and I was completely disconnected from humanity and the universe, and it was just me against the world, and I better be strong, and I better get my combat boots on, and I better not show weakness, to just seeing the beauty in people's struggles and where they were at. And somehow every single one of these things really defined my approach to championing others. It just really, everything, being a dominatrix, being a crisis counselor, nurturing my horses when I was training them, going through all the things that I did, puts me in this, what I think of as a very privileged position, and deepens my purpose. If my purpose gets to be to champion women and to put my voice into the world and to make things better and more beautiful, it's incredible to me. I think that answered your question. I'm not.
Yes, did it? Absolutely. Well, and I'm having this visual in my head, where there's so many books out there for how women can, lean in, how women can take on the day, how women can really survive in a men's world, really is kind of the message that comes to me. Mm-hmm. It's like it's all outer directed. So it's like, here's this world that's out here, and then you have to figure out how to fit into that. And what I'm really hearing you say is that use the different aspects of you, use the spiritual badass, use the quiet, contemplative, loving person, use all of that and have that grow and blossom into your truth, as you call it, and then the world will come to you.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. It is. And I think that I have that sensibility because so much of my life was in that world where the only thing that mattered about me, the only thing, was the outside. Every casting I went to, whether I was in Australia or Paris or wherever, every single person, looked at me and scrutinized me. And even if I thought, oh, I'm having a great hair day, this is great, they would say something about my fingernails. It was just, this constant, so having been in an extremely judgmental and superficially based world for so long, I think that also really helped to help me shift to creating, enriching my inner world. And I
You've
think,
seen the extreme for sure.
yeah, I think sometimes extremes, for me, I find that they're good because if I was moderately, if people judge me in a moderate manner and I felt like, well, you know, whatever, it wouldn't have caused me to go to such lengths to reclaim myself. And everything in my life was so huge and so, such a big life altering thing that it really made me go to extreme lengths to reclaim myself and learn how to live from the inside out instead of just sitting in that helpless place of going, I don't want to be judged. I don't want for people to have power over me. I don't want all of these things.
Well, and that's I just want to thank you for being the person to be a model and deal with that all that criticism, and then also for being, you know, swinging to the other side and being a dominatrix and exploring what there was to discover there, so that you could write this incredible book, so that I don't have to go be a model or be a dominatrix, but and help, just so that you could give this guidance to help women discover their own truth, and where that happy medium might be, as opposed to, you know, and, you know, women might want to go out and go to those extremes, but I don't.
No, I mean, I cracked the whip so you don't have to. That's, you know, and some women, maybe they have a natural inclination and it would be a good fit for them to go and explore some things. But for the most part, no, that wouldn't be, you know, the first thought of a woman to say, I'm going to go empower myself in that way. And when someone like me has this like driving need just to go, either I figure out how a way to accept myself and like myself even a little and try to work towards self-love, or I'm not going to make it. Like, I had such a driving need that, yeah, I was willing to go to those extremes. And yeah, so someone else doesn't have to.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that. And
Awesome.
I want to tell everybody they can get this book, this amazing, amazing little piece of awesome and badassery, at a discount today. They can get it $9.99. It's normally $15.99, and you can get it at beyondword.com/Lux. So run on over there and get that. Get it for you, get it for all your girlfriends, and just spread the word, because the little vanilla book will most definitely change your life. And one of the things that I wanted to mention, I'd forgotten and just remembered, is that a lot of the reviews that we've gotten for this book have all said, I came to this book for one reason and I got something completely different out of it. So if you're thinking about purchasing just because you're kind of intrigued about the little vanilla part of it, about the S&M part of it, get it, because you will get so much more out of it. Have you discovered that a lot of people are kind of that way, Lux? They come to it because they're like, ooh, BDSM, and then they find something more?
Yeah, but you know what? I kind of love that because, you know, for me, it was such an empowering experience. And I am perfectly okay with people coming to the book because of the taboo novelty. Because what I know is that they will walk away from the book having read it with more power and more strength and more self love. So that's why I'm perfectly okay with that. And I like, actually, that I give enough of a behind the scenes look at it that you come away with a greater understanding of BDSM as well. So it goes from this taboo, deviant, get your freak on thing that is completely unfathomable to, oh, so really that's how it worked, and that was a scene with her and someone. Um, so yes, all of that is great, but yeah, the main thing is that I love having looking at, again, like personal growth through this lens and having people go, you know, I'm titillated by the subject matter, and oh my God, I, you know, I feel so much more enabled, for a lack of a better word, to really show up as me and really define my strengths.
I love that. And one of the things, and we have talked about it, and you read one of them, is the Spanx. But I'm curious because there's so many in here. I mean, there's great actionable items that you can do while you're watching, while you're reading the book, of course. What's your favorite? Like, what is one that you just want all women out there to know about?
Well, that's a tough question because, so many of them are so close to my heart. And I feel like might even be a little bit simple, but can really be life changing. And the one that I read about body image really is a big deal to me, and just getting back in touch with your inner sensitivity. But there's one that I like, and it for me that it's a resilience spank, but it talks about taking ownership of how people treat you. But for me, it was about how I treated myself. It was that I treated myself so badly. No one ever could treat me badly as I did. And so I had to retrain myself just to practice self-care. So I'll read the training one from Resilience. Being a doormat isn't sustainable or sexy. This goes for you, inner nice girl. In a dungeon, there's a clear hierarchy in which a dominatrix demands respect from a submissive, and each partner sets the tempo of the relationship early on with clear boundaries. This goes for life in general. Teach people how to treat you without exception. Your attitude and self-love tell people all they need to know. If you value yourself, you'll project self-worth in your interactions, and others will see it and feel it and respond in kind. The people in your life are reflections of your evolution. Luckily, choosing who's right for you is a simple art. Hang around only with nice people. I consider every supportive, kind, genuine person in my life a milestone that reflects my personal growth. It's okay if someone doesn't get you. Share your values or speak the language of your soul. Move on. So I feel like that has to do with how we treat ourselves and how we show up in the world. Because other people shape our experience as well.
Well, and I love what you said, that they're a reflection of ourselves, because we always resist taking responsibility for our lives. It's just kind of, I don't know why, but it's inherent in the human experience. But I'm just thinking about whenever I have like a bad interaction with my husband, or like I'm being off, like one of my friends is just driving me crazy. I always try to take a moment and ask myself, okay, is this just me? Like, is this something that's coming from me? Usually the answer is yes. And so I think it's an incredible thing to look at, and to look at these people outside of ourselves, where we very quickly we're just like, oh, it's their fault, it's their fault, it's their fault. And I do that on a regular basis. Trust me, it's like days before I can say, hey, what's my part in this?
Yeah.
But to be able to use them as that reflection is really powerful.
It is. And it provides sort of a wonderful way to see your personal growth. So even when I was really struggling with my self-worth and not able to say a kind word to myself, and really trying to move that in a different direction, even then it was interesting. I noticed, so I'm choosing a little better with the people in my life. That has to say something. That has to say something about my journey. It just has to. And it would actually give me some confidence to say that kind word to myself, or do something positive that reflected my worth. Because I thought, surely if this person is in my life, I don't believe in accidents. And if I've drawn this person in my life and they're like a really great person, I can't be as bad as I'm making myself out to be, right? So yeah, I truly believe in that. Yeah, people are just reflections of your growth.
What you just said just hit me so hard. Oh my God. because it is so true. I mean, it's like I'll look around myself, and I think many, many women are exactly like this, is just look around yourself, and I feel so blessed to have the people that I have in my life, and I find myself frequently being like, why do they hang out with me? And
Yeah.
it's because, and what you just said, it's like, wow, so I must be pretty cool too.
Yeah. But isn't it funny? Our default is to go, oh, they must not see the real me if they're hanging out with me, or why do they hang out with me? Why is this really great, right? It's
Hmm.
kind of the default. And I sometimes just think that's okay. If your default, but just be able to kind of counteract that with a question like, okay, you know, there's got to be good things about you. So,
Yes, there must be, or else they wouldn't stay around.
yeah, and you
Yeah.
wouldn't have drawn them into your life.
Hmm. Well, and I also love what you said at the very end. It's okay to let people go. I think we as women, we like to make sure that everybody's happy and everybody's comfortable, and sometimes that ends up, and I'm speaking for women when I'm really just expressing my experience, of course,
Mhm.
but that we want to make everybody feel good and feel happy, and sometimes that requires us to limit ourselves or change how we're behaving or whatever that is.
Mhm.
And you can't just let them go.
You can. I think that's true for people or experiences. I think that sometimes when you evolve, it's maybe clear to both people, but it's true for experiences as well. And it's what I found in my dominatrix experience. And when I entered that, I viewed power so differently, and I viewed my own place in the in power so differently. And I really felt like, okay, power is this ultimate badassery where and then I went from that when I realized that I had really gained so many ahas and that I had shifted and I was like more soft and tender through that experience if you which seems completely counterintuitive, but I just realized my notion of it had changed to compassionate strength. It completely changed, and I thought, and it helped. I felt like I had evolved in such a way that I moved on from that experience. I moved on from the dungeon, even though I carried the lessons every day. It was like I'm in this place, and um, also equally important was that I'm not innately kinky. I'm not right. My orientation is not BDSM. It's not as a kinkster, and I think it's important to be authentic and to respect others and all the people who are dedicated to the BDSM lifestyle, heart and soul, and who are innately that. It was kind of a respect thing to say, um, this has been a great experience for me, but I can't stay if I'm not like you know, and if I'm the right fit for potentially this submissive coming in who really needs a long-term relationship with the dominatrix that he can connect with on that level. So, yeah, so that's my long way of saying I think it's true about people or life experiences.
Yeah, it had given you what it was there to give you, and so it was time to move on. And sometimes, and we've all had friends like this, or lovers like this, where at some point in time you're like, I have I have gotten what there was for me to get out of this relationship, and I don't see that there's anything more. Not in a cold way. Oh God, it sounds mean, but at the same
It
time,
does. It makes you feel bad, right? There is some
yeah.
guilt. I feel like there's always some guilt that comes with that you have to work through. There was for
Mm.
me. It was hard for me to leave that world, actually. It's hard. I think it's hard to transition out of a lot of relationships, whether they're with people or events. It is. It's difficult. I think
And
it's
it's okay.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it's a and I'm gonna say Janine Roth said this, who writes the books about body image, and in fact I strongly recommend her work. My favorite book is Women, Food, and God, and she was my go-to for body image and for healing a lot of things for years.
Mm.
And in Women, Food, and God, it's just a beautiful book. And at its core, it's a spiritual book. But at its core, it's really, she's saying, which I wholeheartedly agree with, it's not about deprivation. Don't deprive yourself. I'll give yourself permission to like eat what you want to do, because you will find your set, like you will find your balance. But depriving yourself and whipping yourself over the back, no pun, for messing up and having that chocolate sundae or that burrito or whatever is not helping.
Mm.
And so there's my little side track for just thought. I can't help it. But I think she's the one who said, if if a canoe helps you cross a river, after you get across the river, it's okay to leave the canoe there. You don't have to carry it around on your back for the rest of your life. And I love that analogy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost at our hour. My goodness, that just absolutely flew by. Is there any last thought that you would like to leave women who are watching this, ready to go out and start their spiritual, feminine, badass journey that they can launch off with?
Woo! I like the way you say it. Final thoughts for women on their journey. Find a way to give yourself permission to live your truth. Find a way, whatever that way is, that makes you feel capable and takes your focus off of how your body looks that particular day. Find a way that, and even if these are out of the box ways, obviously for me, I love left of center empowerment, but whatever it is that allows you to sort of step into your own self-worth and be truthful to who you are, if I can be one of those ways, I couldn't be more proud or feel more privileged. But just find your way to claim your worth. That to me is just everything.
Because there is a way. Because there's women out there who are being kind of like, I don't think I have a way, but there is a way.
I absolutely believe that. Yeah. That's definitely true for every woman.
Yes. Well, get out there, find your way, and part of that can be getting Lux's book. Shameless plug, but it's really true. $9.99 at www.beyondword.com/Lux, Lux. Go grab your copy now. It's a great discount. It's a great book. And I just want to say, Lux, thank you so much for joining us on the show. This has been a fantastic hour. I've enjoyed myself immensely.
Too. Thank you. It was a privilege.
Thank you. And we'll see everybody watching it on our next show. Have a great day.
All the sacred feminine badasses.
Yeah.